I had spent 3 years watching humans. She was a tall creature with 4 arms and skin the color of pale blue ice. Her people were scholars. They watched and studied other species across the galaxy. The Galactic Council had asked her to study humans because they wanted to know if these strange creatures from a small planet called Earth were dangerous. For 3 years, I thought the answer was no. Humans were soft. They had no claws, no armor, no poison. They could not see in the dark like they could not breathe underwater like they could not survive in the cold vacuum of space like the silicon-based. They were just bags of water and meat that died easily. I had read their books. She had listened to their music. She had watched their movies. She found them emotional and strange but not frightening. They wrote poems about flowers and sang songs about love. How could such creatures be dangerous? She was assigned to the human warship called the Indomitable. It was a medium-sized vessel with a crew of 312 humans. I had her own room and was allowed to go anywhere on the ship. The humans were friendly to her. They smiled and waved and tried to teach her their games. The captain of the ship was a man named Park. He was 52 years old with hair at his temples and lines around his eyes. He spoke softly and moved slowly. He liked to drink tea and read old books. I thought he seemed tired, like a man waiting for retirement. The tactical officer was a young woman named. She was quick and sharp with eyes that missed nothing. She rarely smiled, but when she did, it changed her whole face. The chief engineer was a large man with big hands and a loud laugh. He treated his engines like they were his children. The doctor was Lee Sara, a small woman with gentle hands and a soft voice. She grew plants in her medical bay and gave them names. These were ordinary people. I had written in her reports that humans were not a threat to the galaxy. They were simply another young species learning to walk among the stars. Then the distress signal came. It was late in the ship's night cycle. I was in the observation deck, watching the stars slide past. She liked this room because it was quiet and she could think. The alarm was soft at first, then loud. Red lights began to flash. I made her way to the bridge. When she arrived, she saw something that confused her. The humans were not panicking. They moved with calm purpose to their stations. Their faces were serious but not afraid. Captain stood in the center of the bridge with his hands behind his back. He looked at the main screen. "Report," he said. His fingers flew across her console. "Distress signal from Colony Aria 7, sir. 12,000 civilians. They are under attack." "By whom?" "Fleet, 47 warships." I felt her 4 hearts stop. They were the most feared conquerors in the galaxy. They had destroyed 17 civilizations. They took prisoners and used them as slaves in their mining camps. No one had ever defeated them in battle. She waited for Captain to send a message to the fleet command asking for help. She waited for him to calculate the odds and decide that rescue was impossible. 1 ship against 47 was suicide. But he did neither of these things. "How long until we arrive?" he asked. 6 hours at maximum speed, sir." "Take us there, battle stations." That was all. No long speech. No hesitation. Just a simple order that would take them all to their deaths. I stepped forward. "Captain, forgive me, but this is madness. You have 1 ship, they have 47. Your weapons cannot defeat them. Your shields cannot protect you. You will all die." Turned to look at her. His eyes were not the eyes of a tired old man anymore. They were hard and cold, like stones at the bottom of a frozen river. "There are 12,000 people on that colony," he said. "Men, women, and children. If we do not go, they will be taken by They will spend the rest of their lives in darkness, working until they die. But you cannot save them. The math does not allow it." "Then we will change the math." I did not understand. How could anyone change math? Numbers were numbers. 1 ship could not defeat 47. The bridge crew was working at their stations. No one questioned the order. No one suggested they run away, was already planning attack patterns. His voice came over the speaker, reporting that engines were at full power. I looked at their faces. She had studied humans for 3 years. She had thought she understood them, but she did not understand this. They were going to die. They knew they were going to die, and they were going anyway. Why? She asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. Captain looked at her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. It was a small smile, tired and sad, but there was something else in it, something that looked almost like peace. Because someone has to, he said. Because if we do not try, then who will? Because those 12,000 people are looking at the sky right now, hoping that someone is coming to help them. And we are someone. He turned back to the screen. We are someone, he repeated softly, and someone is enough. I stood in the corner of the bridge and watched the humans prepare for war. She did not understand them. She did not understand why they would throw away their lives for strangers they had never met. But somewhere deep inside her 4 hearts, something stirred. It was a feeling she had never felt before. It took her many hours to give it a name. The feeling was called hope. The Indomitable flew through the darkness of space at maximum speed. 6 hours separated them from the fleet and certain death. I expected the humans to spend this time checking weapons and running simulations. They did these things, but they also did something else, something she did not expect. They told stories. I found chief engineer in the engine room with his team. There were 20 engineers, men and women in dirty uniforms with grease on their hands. They sat in a circle on the metal floor while talked. My grandmother was a girl during the Korean conflict, he said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. She was 15 years old. The enemy was coming to her village and everyone had to run. The engineers listened. Even the machines seemed to grow quiet. It was winter. The snow was deep and the wind was cold enough to kill. My grandmother walked for 3 days through the mountains. She had no shoes because she gave them to her younger brother. Her feet turned black from the cold. I stood in the doorway, watching. She carried her baby brother on her back the whole way. He was only 2 years old. When they finally reached safety, the doctors said they would have to cut off her feet, but she refused. She said she needed her feet to dance at her brother's wedding. Smiled, his eyes were wet. She kept her feet. She danced at his wedding. She danced at my mother's wedding. She danced at mine. He looked at his team. My grandmother was 15 years old with frozen feet, carrying a baby through a war. If she could do that, we can keep this ship running. We can give our crew a chance. The engineers nodded. Something had changed in their eyes. They went back to work, but they moved differently now, faster, with more purpose. I left the engine room and walked through the ship. Everywhere she went, she found humans sharing stories. In the weapons bay, a young man named told his team about his father who had worked in a factory for 30 years. He never complained, said. Every morning he woke up, kissed my mother and went to work. He did it so I could go to school, so I could have a better life. He gave me everything he had. In the mess hall, a woman named Shin told stories about her village back on Earth. We had nothing, she said. But when someone was hungry, we shared our food. When someone was sick, we took care of them. We survived because we had each other. These were not stories about great heroes or famous battles. They were stories about ordinary people doing ordinary things. But as I listened, she began to understand something. Humans did not think they were ordinary. To them, a grandmother walking through snow was a hero. A father working in a factory was a hero. A village sharing food was heroic. They saw greatness in small things. I found Dr. Sara in the medical bay. The small woman was preparing supplies, laying out bandages and medicines in neat rows. Her plants sat on a shelf, green and peaceful. You are not afraid? I asked. Sora looked up. Her eyes were calm. I am very afraid, she said. My hands are shaking, do you see? She held up her hands. They were trembling slightly. But fear is not a bad thing. Fear tells us that something matters. Those colonists matter, my matter. So I am afraid for them, and that fear will help me save them. How can fear help? Because fear makes us careful, it makes us quick, it makes us strong. Fear is not the enemy, giving up is the enemy. She went back to her work, her hands still shaking but sure. A climb to the observation deck. Captain was there, standing alone in front of the great windows. Stars streamed past like rivers of light. You are not with your crew, I said. They do not need me right now, replied. They need each other. They need to remember why they fight. And why do you fight? Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was distant, like a man speaking from a dream. My great-great-grandfather was a soldier. He fought in a battle called. It was one of the first battles in a war that happened long ago on Earth. He was outnumbered. He had bad equipment. He knew he could not win. What happened to him? He fought anyway. He and his friends held a hill for as long as they could. They gave other soldiers time to prepare. Many of them died. My great-great-grandfather was wounded but survived. Turned to face her. After the war, someone asked him why he did not run. Do you know what he said? Shook her head. He said, because the men next to me did not run. That was all. He stayed because they stayed. They stayed because he stayed. They held together because that is what humans do. A thought about this. Your species confuses me, she admitted. You are weak individually. Your bodies break easily. You cannot survive in harsh conditions, yet you do not act like weak creatures. Nodded slowly. We know we are weak. That is why we hold together. One human is fragile, but humans together. Humans who love each other, who fight for each other, who refuse to abandon each other. He looked back at the stars. That is something else entirely. The ship flew on through the darkness. In 3 hours they would reach the fleet. In 3 hours they would fight a battle they could not win. But as I walked through the ship, she did not see despair. She saw crews working together, sharing stories, holding each other up. She saw humans being human. And for the first time, she began to think that maybe the math could be changed after all. The Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace like a stone falling into a pond. But instead of appearing at a safe distance from the enemy, the ship emerged directly in the center of the formation. Grabbed a railing to steady herself. Her 4 hearts were beating so fast she thought they might burst. On the main screen, she could see warships everywhere. They surrounded the Indomitable like wolves surrounding a wounded deer. Their dark hulls blocked out the stars. What are you doing? She shouted at Captain. You appeared in the middle of them. Did not look at her. His eyes were fixed on the screen. They expected us to attack from a distance. They expected us to be careful. They expected us to be smart. He smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. We are not going to be smart. We are going to be fast. All batteries, he said calmly, fire at will. The ship shook as every weapon fired at once. Plasma cannons sent bright blue streams of energy into the nearest ships. Missiles launched in waves, their trails cutting across the darkness like shooting stars. Point defense guns rattled, filling space with metal and fire. 2 ships exploded before they could raise their shields. Their crews never even had time to scream. But they recovered quickly. They were not the greatest conquerors in the galaxy for nothing. Commands flew across their fleet, and within seconds they were fighting back. Energy beams slammed into the Indomitable. The ship screamed as metal twisted and broke. Alarms filled the air with their terrible sound. Red lights flashed on every console. Hull breach Deck 7, someone shouted. Seal it, replied. Her voice was calm, almost bored. Keep firing. I could not believe what she was seeing. The humans were not retreating. They were not trying to escape. They were pushing deeper into the enemy formation, guns blazing, taking hits but giving more than they received. A massive dreadnought moved to block their path. It was 3 times the size of the Indomitable. Its weapons could destroy them in a single volley. Its armor was too thick for human weapons to penetrate. It sat between them and the colony like a mountain of death. "That ship is too big," I said. "You cannot destroy it." Captain nodded slowly. "You are correct, we cannot destroy it." He turned to the helm officer. "Ram speed, target their engine section." The helm officer, a young man named O, did not hesitate. His hands moved across the console, and the Indomitable leaped forward. I felt her legs go weak. "You are going to hit them on purpose." "Their armor is thick at the front," explained, "but not at the back. The engine section is vulnerable. If we can damage their engines, they cannot chase us. But the impact will destroy your ship." "Probably." The Indomitable accelerated toward the dreadnought. On the screen, I could see the massive ship growing larger and larger. Its weapons were firing, but the Indomitable was moving too fast, weaving between the energy beams like a dancer avoiding raindrops. I closed her eyes. She did not want to see the end. "Hard starboard now," commanded. The ship twisted violently to the right. I was thrown against the wall. She heard metal screaming, felt the ship shuddering, smelled smoke and burning. Then somehow they were past. She opened her eyes. On the screen, the dreadnought was spinning out of control. Fire poured from its engine section. As she watched, the engines exploded in a ball of orange and red. "What happened?" she gasped. Checked her console. "We scraped along their hull at close range. Our point defense guns tore into their exposed systems. Their engines overloaded." "Direct hit on their fuel lines," his voice came over the speaker. He sounded tired but proud. "Nice flying." 3 ships destroyed, 44 remained. But the Indomitable was hurt. I could feel it in the way the ship moved, sluggish and unsteady. Smoke filled the corridors. The lights flickered. "Damage report," said. "Shields at 40%. Hull breaches on decks 4, 7, and 9. Weapons at 70%. Life support is stable for now." "For now." "We took a hit to the secondary oxygen recyclers. Is working on it." Captain nodded. "Tell he has 15 minutes." "Sir, that is not enough time." "Then he had better work fast." The Indomitable pushed forward, limping but alive. More ships moved to intercept them. More weapons fire filled the darkness. The ship took hit after hit, but it did not stop. It did not turn back. It kept advancing toward the colony. I watched the humans work. Their faces were covered in sweat and dirt. Some of them were bleeding from cuts and burns, but none of them stopped. None of them complained. None of them asked to retreat. A console exploded near. Shrapnel cut her arm, leaving a deep gash that bled bright red. She grabbed a bandage from under her station, wrapped her arm with one hand, and went back to firing weapons. 5 more enemy ships disabled, she reported. Her voice did not change. I stared at her. "You are hurt." "Yes." "You should go to the medical bay." Looked at her. For a moment something flickered in her eyes. Pain maybe, or fear. "Later," she said. "After." She turned back to her console. The Indomitable fought on. It was 1 ship against 44. The numbers had changed, but they were still impossible. The humans were still going to lose. But they did not act like losers. They acted like winners who simply had not won yet. And as I watched them advance into the heart of the enemy fleet, she felt that strange feeling again. That feeling called hope. Maybe the math really could be changed. Maybe 1 ship could make a difference. Maybe these soft, weak creatures from a small blue world were not so soft or weak after all. The battle had lasted 2 hours. It felt like 200 years. The Indomitable was dying. I could see it in the smoke that filled every corridor. She could hear it in the groaning of the metal walls. She could smell it in the burning wires and leaking fluids. But the ship was still fighting. On Deck 4, they had breached the hull and sent soldiers aboard. I watched the security feeds from the bridge, unable to look away. Sergeant Han led the defense. He was a short man with thick arms and a quiet voice. I had spoken to him once in the mess hall. He had told her about his daughter back on Earth, a little girl who liked to paint pictures of flowers. Now he was fighting for his life. The soldiers were terrifying. They were tall creatures with 4 legs and 2 powerful arms. Their skin was like armor, dark and covered with sharp spines. Their eyes glowed red in the darkness. They poured through the breach, weapons firing. And his team met them with guns blazing. The corridor became a storm of light and sound. Bodies fell on both sides. Then's gun ran out of ammunition. A soldier lunged at him, claws reaching for his throat, grabbed a broken pipe from the wall and swung it like a club. The pipe hit his head with a wet crunch. The creature fell. Another came at him, and another, kept swinging, his face covered in alien blood, his arms burning with exhaustion. He did not stop. He did not retreat. "Hold the line," he shouted to his team. "They do not get past us." On the bridge, I turned away from the screen. Her hands were shaking. "They are just security guards," she whispered. "They are not warriors. How can they fight like this?" Captain did not look at her. His eyes were fixed on the tactical display. "They are human," he said simply. "That is how." In the medical bay, Dr. Sara was working faster than I had ever seen anyone work. Wounded crew members filled every bed and covered the floor. The smell of blood was thick in the air. Sara's arms were burned. A plasma conduit had exploded near her, cooking her skin. But she did not stop. She moved from patient to patient, stitching wounds, setting bones, keeping people alive through pure will. A young woman was brought in, her chest torn open by shrapnel. Sara worked on her for 10 minutes, hands deep inside the woman's body, fighting against death itself. The woman survived. Sara moved to the next patient without pause. In the engine room, and his team were performing miracles. The main reactor was damaged, leaking radiation. The backup systems were failing one by one. Any reasonable engineer would have shut everything down and evacuated. Was not reasonable. "Reroute power through the secondary conduits," he ordered. His voice was hoarse from breathing smoke. "Bypass the safety protocols on Reactor 3. Sir, if we do that, the reactor could overload." "It could, but if we do not do it, we lose weapons. If we lose weapons, we die. I would rather risk an overload." The reactor held. The weapons stayed online, collapsed against a wall, coughing blood, then pushed himself up and went back to work. On the bridge, reported the battle status. 12 ships destroyed. We have broken through their main formation. Colony is in range for evacuation shuttles. Captain closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they were filled with something I had not seen before. Peace. "Launch all shuttles," he ordered. "Get those people off the surface." The helm officer hesitated. "Sir, if we launch all shuttles, we lose our escape route. We will not be able to evacuate the crew." "I know, sir. I know." His voice was soft but firm. "Those colonists are counting on us. There are 12,000 of them. We are 300. The math is simple." He looked around the bridge at his crew. They looked back at him. No one argued. No one protested. "Launch the shuttles." 20 small ships detached from the Indomitable and streaked toward the planet below. Each shuttle could carry 200 people. If everything went perfectly, they could save every colonist. The fleet saw the shuttles. They had a choice to make. They could chase the shuttles and capture the colonists, or they could destroy the Indomitable and let the shuttles escape. They chose to chase the shuttles. "They are pursuing the evacuation ships," reported. 23 vessels breaking formation. Captain smiled. Not today, he said. Helm put us between them and the shuttles. All weapons target the lead pursuers. The Indomitable turned, its broken hull screaming in protest. It threw itself into the path of the ships like a wounded animal protecting its young. You are insane, I said. You will all die. Maybe, replied, but those shuttles will live, those colonists will live, and that is enough. The ships opened fire. The Indomitable shuddered, burning, breaking. But it did not move. It did not retreat. It stood between the hunters and the hunted, giving everything it had. On the planet below, the shuttles began to land. Colonists poured out of shelters and ran toward them. Children cried. Parents carried them. In the sky above, a single ship burned like a star, holding back the darkness. The colonists looked up at that burning star. They did not know the names of the people dying to save them. They did not know about fighting with a broken pipe. They did not know about Sora healing with burned hands. They did not know about keeping the engines alive through stubbornness alone. But they knew someone was up there. Someone was fighting for them. And that was enough. 3 months after the Battle of Aria 7, I stood before the Galactic Council. The chamber was vast, filled with representatives from 100 different species. They sat in rows that curved around a central platform like the inside of a shell. Light came from above, soft and golden, making everything feel ancient and important. I stood alone on the platform. Her 4 hands trembled slightly. She had never spoken to so many powerful beings before, but she had a story to tell, and she would tell it. You sent me to study humanity, she began. Her voice echoed through the chamber. You wanted to know if they were dangerous. You wanted to know if they were a threat to the galaxy. The council members leaned forward. They had heard rumors about what happened at Aria 7. They wanted the truth. I watched a single human ship attack 47 warships, I continued. I watched them fly directly into the enemy formation instead of running away. I watched them take hit after hit and keep fighting. She paused, remembering. When they breached their hull, I watched human soldiers fight hand-to-hand with creatures twice their size. I watched a security sergeant kill enemies with a broken pipe after his gun ran out of ammunition. I watched a doctor heal the wounded while her own arms were burning. I watched an engineer keep the engines running while coughing blood. The chamber was silent. Every eye was fixed on her. And when they finally broke through the enemy line, when they reached the colony they had come to save, they did not escape. They launched their shuttles to rescue the colonists, all of their shuttles. They gave up their only way off the ship. A's voice grew stronger. Captain Park put his ship between the fleet and those evacuation shuttles. The Indomitable was burning. It was broken. It could barely move. But it stood there like a wall, blocking the enemy, taking every hit, giving the shuttles time to escape. She remembered what happened next. She would never forget it. The commander contacted Captain. He demanded surrender. He said that if the humans gave up, he would let them live as slaves instead of killing them. Do you know what said? The council waited. He said, "You will not touch them." Then he fired every weapon his dying ship had left. I walked slowly across the platform, looking at each council member in turn. The Indomitable killed 9 more ships before its guns went silent. Then Chief Engineer overloaded the reactor. He turned the ship into a bomb. The explosion destroyed 6 more enemy vessels. She stopped walking. The remaining 17 ships ran away. 17 ships, veterans of countless victories, conquerors of civilizations, ran from a single human vessel that refused to die. A murmur went through the council that had never retreated, never. All 12,000 colonists survived, I said. Every single one. Rescue ships found the Indomitable's crew and life pods scattered across the system. Of 312 humans, 208 survived, including Captain, who had to be cut out of the wreckage of his bridge. She took a deep breath. You asked me to tell you if humanity is a threat. You wanted to know if you should fear them." The council members exchanged glances. They are not a threat. They are something far more terrifying. They are a force of nature. A spreader 4 arms wide. Other species fight for territory. They fight for resources. They fight for survival. Humans fight for each other. They fight for strangers they have never met. They fight for an idea that no one should be left behind. Her voice rose. They have conquered 17 civilizations. They have never faced anything like this. An enemy that does not calculate odds. An enemy that does not retreat. An enemy that advances into certain death and somehow survives. She pointed at the council members. "You want to know why the galaxy should fear humanity? I will tell you, because they are not afraid of you. They are not afraid of death. They are only afraid of failing the people who depend on them." She lowered her arm. "And that makes them invincible." The council chamber was silent. No one spoke. No one moved. The weight of her words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Finally, the oldest member of the council, a being made of living crystal who had seen 1,000 years, spoke. "What do you recommend we do about humanity?" I smiled. It was the first time she had ever smiled like a human. "I recommend we become their friends, because if humanity ever decides that the galaxy needs saving, nothing will stop them. Nothing will slow them down. They will advance into whatever darkness threatens us, and they will not stop until the job is done." She turned and walked off the platform. The galaxy does not need to fear humanity. The galaxy needs to thank whatever gods exist that humanity is on our side. Somewhere far away, on a small blue world at the edge of the galaxy, humans went about their lives. They worked and laughed and loved. They told stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. They held their children close and promised to protect them. They did not know that the galaxy was watching them. They did not know that ancient beings whispered their name in fear and wonder. They were just humans, soft creatures from a small world, bags of water and meat that died easily. But when they stood together, when they fought for each other, when they refused to give up no matter how bad the odds, they became something else. They became the thing that could not be killed. They became the reason the galaxy quakes. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, they remembered the burning ship that would not fall, the broken creatures that would not surrender, and they understood something they had never understood before. Some prey should not be hunted. Some species should not be conquered. Some fires once lit cannot be put out. Humanity was that fire. And it was just getting started.